So one of the things you may notice about the items is that now there are 2 shops instead of 1, so there are twice as many items in the last version. And what I try to do is I wanted each race to have their own unique items. So basically, about 50% of the items are unique to that race, while the other 50% are pretty much universal for each race, but just with different icons and different names. So one of the changes is that for weapons and armor, there are now 5 levels instead of 3. So there are 2 more levels to weapon and armor items. So hopefully this should give players some way to spend their minerals later into the game. As for the weapons and armor, they now scale exponentially as opposed to linearly like they did in the last version. And the reason I did this was because before, when it was linear, it basically made it so that weapons were really, really good early game, but armor items were much, much better later into the game. And I want weapons and armor to both be equally useful at both stages of the game. Each race now also has 3 energy items, and those just increase your hero's energy, regeneration, and maximum energy. And it's similar to armor and weapon items where you can only have 1. Each race also has a movement item, and each race also has an item that increases your sight radius. I also gave each item a sort of stat booster. I also gave each race a stat booster item. And of course, it's different for each race, but it's basically sort of like ironwood branches in Dota. In the case of Terran, it's called the Ultra Capacitor, and it just gives you a slight bonus to your damage, to like everything, your damage, your energy, your shields, whatever. So you can purchase these Ultra Capacitors, and they're the only non-consumable item that you can have multiple of. For example, I could buy a bunch, and now my siege tank, he has 3 ultra capacitors, and he benefits from all 3. But if, for example, I buy 2 of a different item, it'll say cannot have more than 1 item. So the idea behind the stat booster is just they're really, really good early game, and they just give players something to fill up their slots with in the early game. So hopefully that should be a lot of fun. Oh yeah, another thing a lot of players complained about was that it took a long time to get back to your beacon to heal if you were damaged, especially in the early game when you're still laning. So I gave each race now has a teleport item that teleports them instantly back to their team's beacon. For example, the Terrans, they have a drop pod an item, and it's a consumable item, and I'll just show it to you. So you can click it, and then your hero launches into a drop pod, and then he lands at the beacon. So it's just a useful item to getting back to your base really fast, get healed, and then get items, and then go back into the action. So the animation is different for each race. I'll just show you the Protoss one. Yeah. So for the Protoss, it's called Warp Out, and it's a teleport animation. You can see that the Dark Templar hero teleported to the beacon. And for the Zerg, it's called Nidus Worm. And which hero's item? And I'll show it to you. So a Nidus Worm eats your hero, and then spits your hero back at the beacon. So yeah, that should be a really useful item to use. Okay, so the Terrans. One thing that a lot of people complained about was that some heroes could not attack air, and I do realize it was a problem. But at the same time, I want to keep. I want to have some heroes that can attack air and some that can't. So to try to keep this uniqueness while resolving the issue, each race now has an anti-air item, and for the Terrans, their anti-air item is called Devastator Missiles. And what this does, which here has it. Okay, so what it does is it's basically like a passive attack. If anyone has played like battleships in Warcraft 3 or like battle tanks, they'll know what it does. Basically, if an enemy is nearby, your hero will automatically shoot Devastator missiles at the enemy units. So I highly recommend this for a hero like the Siege Tank hero, which cannot normally attack these overlords, because it just gives your hero a bit of anti-air ability, and that could make quite a bit of a difference throughout the game. And of course, it's passive, so you automatically shoot it even while you move. The Terrans, they also have a passive ability which increases their attack speed. They have a passive ability which gives your hero a chance to stun the enemy on a small chance to stun the enemy on each attack. So it's sort of like the bash ability in Warcraft 3. As for spell items, I try to differentiate between early game spell items and late game spell items by making late game spell items a lot more powerful but more expensive, and then early games cheaper but less useful. So because I want players to use spell items even early in the game. So the Terrans have 2 new spell items. One of them is called Protective Shield, and this is basically like the Scroll of Protection in Warcraft 3, except it's reusable. So if you use it, it basically gives all nearby friendly units a defensive shield, which just gives them a slight defensive bonus for a short period of time. So this ability will be really useful in team fights, and it can also be useful if you're trying to push a lane with lots of creeps. So I would like to see how players can abuse this item. And the other new item for the Terrans is called Throw Grenade, and this is just a really simple early game item. It basically, it's quite simple. You just throw a grenade, and it costs some energy. And so it's basically an early game damage spell item, and I highly recommend this for heroes like the Marine hero who might not be able to spend all of their energy early in the game. For the Protoss, they have quite some interesting new items. They have an item that increases life regeneration. They also have an item that gives your hero a small chance to deal double damage, so it's just a critical strike item. And here's the item I really like. It's called Interceptor, and which hero has it? Basically, the Interceptor basically just gives your hero an interceptor, and the interceptor will fall around your hero, and it will circle your hero. And when your hero goes near enemy units, the interceptor will automatically attack the enemy units. And you can only have one interceptor, and if you drop the interceptor dies. Pick up the interceptor, and the interceptor comes back. So, and the interceptor gives sight. So I would really like to see how players use this interceptor item. And of course, the interceptor is invulnerable. So it's basically just like just like a thing that passively attacks nearby enemies. Another new item is called Power Field, and I highly recommend this item if you're the pro hero. So it does 2 things. The first thing is it's basically an aura, and it doubles shield regeneration to nearby allied units. But in addition to that, it also acts as like a power field, just sort of like a pylon. And the reason that this is useful with Probe Hero is because the Probe Hero needs power to power photon cannons. So if you purchase this item and you're the Probe Hero, you can basically place photon cannons without the need of a pylon. And so if, for example, the enemy team, and also powers the photon cannons. So if the enemy team kills your pylon, and your probe has this item, then your photon cannons will still be powered and still be able to attack. And I'll just show it to you. So right now the probe hero is nearby. So these cannons, these photon cannons are in the power field. But if I move the probe hero away, then suddenly the photon cannons are no longer powered. So yeah, I highly recommend this item for probe hero. And even if you don't have a probe hero on your team, it's still useful to because it is a very relatively cheap aura, so it's still a useful item. And the Zerg also the Protoss also have 2 new spell items. One of them is called Citrus Oxide, and this is just it looks pretty cool. It just gives your hero cool animation, and your hero basically has plus 10% time scale, so they experience 10% more time, which means they move 10% faster, they attack 10% faster, and it's only for a short period of time. It's probably a really good ability to use for like a combat hero like the Zealot hero. And the other new item that the Protoss have is called Disruption Web. Now, normally, for example, this Zealot hero cannot attack air units, but the Disruption Web is the Protoss's new anti-air item. So I'll just show it to you. For example, there's all these overlords, and the Zealot hero cannot attack them. What you can do with Disruption Web is you can cast it, and it will basically make enemy units unable to move for a short period of time, and if they're air units, it'll make them ground units. So, so definitely, if you're a Reaver hero or a Colossus hero or a Zealot hero, get the Disruption Web item. I do realize it's not quite the same as the Disruption Web in StarCraft 1, where units under the web cannot attack, but I think this works better, especially when some heroes can not attack air any other way. And finally, I'll just go through the Zerg's new items. One of the new items is called Glaive Worm, and for this item, it basically allows it basically gives your hero the Mutalisk attack. So your hero, I don't know if you can see it, but the Ultralisk is basically shooting glaive worms which bounce at enemies. So it could be I don't know, it could be a pretty useful item. It's sort of like the Devastator missiles, where it's just like a passive attack that you can purchase. The Zerg also have a passive ability which gives you lifesteal. They have a passive ability which slows down enemy units that are hit by your attacks. And they also have a new spell item called Spawn Aberration. And this item is probably temporary until I can think of a better item idea. But it's just it's very simple. It allows you to spawn an aberration for a short period of time, and the aberration can attack. So yeah, well, yeah. So that's it for items. And I guess that's it for what's new in version 1.2. Just a reminder, I'll be publishing version 1.2 tomorrow, and please try it out and give me feedback. And thanks for watching.